The Devil is in Democracy Part 1. Dear friends, let it not be said, as it is said by conservatives, there are things which are inherently wrong. Christians say this, to control you. Nothing is wrong that is not illegal, and if it is not illegal, it is not wrong. Let no one condemn you outside the law. The law permits all things not specifically forbidden, that is the law. The law is not about exclusion. Democracy is a source of law, and democracy is the voice of freedom. The fight for democracy is the fight for freedom under the law. The law silences all voices calling for exclusion and division. If we agree, under the law, we are stronger. In unity there is power. What right has anyone to limit freedom, with accusation and innuendo? The promise of democracy is the promise of liberty, and liberty is under the law. The right wants to exclude and constrain and limit and imprison anyone who does not think as they think. If conservatives do not like someone's dress, or their language or habits, they make them into social outcasts. Must we be punished for being who we are? What is so frightening about diversity? Who is so base they do not wish to be free? If you love freedom, then let there be law, for the law promises freedom. Embrace democracy, for democracy is the voice of the people. Defend those who defend democracy. Vote for those who embrace a progressive democracy. You have an opinion. I have an opinion. Everyone has an opinion. If your opinion differs from mine, and if you have a problem with my opinion or I have a problem with your views, we are different. But being different is not a crime. We can live, without one of us making the other into a criminal. We can live and let live, under the law. When there are differences of opinion, remember, these are options, so embrace the diversity. Diversity is democracy. The majority decides which party wins, but the law never to reduce diversity. Laws tell us what is right and what is wrong, in an environment of freedom. No one is free to break the law, because the law is created to protect the freedom of all. The state has the right to make and enforce the law because the state represents the will of the people. As members of a nation, we are subjects of the state, meaning we are subject to the laws of the state. The will of the people cannot be determined precisely. Everyone has an opinion, and so we need the state to protect minority rights and unpopular opinion, within reason. Representative government is authorized to act in the best interest of all persons. This may even entail doing that which people may against, not understanding fully what is in their best interest. Or the people may have been unduly influenced by nefarious elements. It is the duty of the elected representative to do what is best for the majority, regardless of the reaction of malcontents. This responsibility of the state includes enforcement of all provisions and regulations enacted by Parliament. The state, in fulfilling its duties and responsibilities, will, from time to time, be forced to go against public opinion and even national sentiment, but the larger picture must always be kept in mind. Fear must not be permitted to stop us from doing what is in the best interests of all. An individual or a class of persons may need from time to time to be tasked with special duties or responsibilities. The rich may need to be taxed at a higher rate than the poor, and those with much may be required to accept a larger share of the burden. The individual exists for the good of all. It is mankind that represents the true democratic majority. The needs of the many is why some classes and groups of persons are called upon to give back a portion of what they were gifted. The right calls this the implementation of a social agenda. It is merely doing what is in the best interests of all. Christians, who are mostly white, have long enjoyed the benefits of their race and religion. Their gains have come at the expense of many others. This is not right. This privilege sows division. If whites are asked to give back a portion of what they took, ought they be surprised? Many of the institutions whites created contributed to the advantage whites have over other races. It is time to equalize these advantages, so that the majority can catch up. Mankind cannot permit special interests to divide us. Capitalism and Christianity have benefited whites preferentially. White Christians have no special rights to the institutions of the West, nor must their claim on the wealth these systems generated be respected indefinitely. Whites need to make room at the table for others. Systemic oppression is a real thing. Systems of whites have, through violence, slavery and colonialism, been spread throughout the world. White people have claimed lands and privilege that belong to others. Indigenous peoples, along with their languages, cultures, mores, and traditions have been pushed aside to the point of irrelevance by white colonial practices. The history, language and culture of whites has of no greater merit or virtue than the culture and language of the Andamanese or Melanesia, or any other culture or language group. It's only the guns and diseases of white settlers that force native cultures into a historic backwater. Without the oppression of white languages and culture, who knows what native ways might have produced? The time of white domination of other races is past. Time for other voices to be heard and other languages and ideas to be given a place at the table. The people of the earth must strive towards mutual respect and tolerance as we build the global village. The earth does not exist for one group to rape and pillage and despoil for private gain. The voice of all peoples must be heard. Earth is a community composed of all people born and yet to be born. Individual rights must take a back seat to the needs of the many. We cannot let selfishness of a few powerful groups ruin the world for everyone else. The people of today do not have a preeminent claim to the earth because they are alive today. The generations of yesterday did not live solely for the people of today, the people of tomorrow have rights also. The democracies must join together, to seek global solutions to our global problems. The problem of one is the problem of all. A nation is but one voice among many nations and peoples. All the nations of the earth must be given a voice at the table. The United Nations has been a strong voice of reason, among the cabal of nationalists voicing xenophobic self-interest. This lone voice of reason and inclusion was not always heard in the cacophony preaching exclusion and national self-interest. The nations that have benefited historically from the systemic inequities attached to race and hemisphere, are called upon to open their economies as well as their hearts, to the needs of those who found themselves in less favored parts of the planet. All persons are entitled to the necessities of life. All humans have the same human rights. What right have some people to several homes while others live on the streets? What right have some to caviar and 2-inch steak bread? Some have water to keep green manicured lawns and ornamental trees, whilst others have to drink dirty water. If we cannot get clean water and food to the needy, the world needs to move the needy to where water, food and shelter is available. Borders must not serve as a barrier to rights. Nations do not take priority over humanity. What makes those on one side of an invisible line more deserving than those on the other side? Democracy gives the nations rulers who work on the behalf of all humanity. The voice of the many is translated, through democracy, into leaders who work for the good of all. The nation belongs to you, the people, through your representatives. But these elected representatives do not just represent the nation or the nation's voters. World leaders have obligations to all persons, everywhere. Elected representatives are part of the human race. The security of one nation cannot be guaranteed, whilst basic rights, in so many other places, are ignored. We all have the same needs, we are all human. Human rights cannot be denied those who did not vote or who voted for some other party or policy or in some other state. Your government represents you and your nation. But the nation is a minority in the global village and just one small voice. Even if the future requires a suspension of the right to vote, it is only to give those with no voice a chance to be heard. The law must not permit those in one nation to suspend the rights of other peoples in other nations. Civil rights are not meant to be a barrier to equality under the law. The law must apply to all and not just to some, or to some more than to others. Democracy, ultimately, is the voice of the global village. Democracy is not an excuse or justification for nationalism. Democracy tied to nationalism is democracy denied. Humanity finds its voice through democracy. Democracy is the promise of the same law for all persons in all places. The focus of the law must be the equality of all persons under the law. The law is the promise of equality, fraternity and justice for all. Under the law, no one is above the law. All persons are in the law and under the law, and no one is outside of the law, other than outlaws. Those who live in the law are treated justly by the law. Those who live outside the law, of the law. The only bad law is the law that excludes some and favors others, or which does not apply to all persons everywhere, equally. The same law everywhere is the fulfillment of the promise of democracy. The law defines the majority, and the law defines the minority. Those in the law are blessed by the law, as those outside of the law are punished by the law. The majority are those under the same law living as equals as provided by the law. Each person under the law is given an identity by the law. It is this legal identity that makes us subjects of the state. Those outside of the law are ineligible for the rights and privileges given under the law to subjects of the law. If anyone is breaking the law or threatening the peace of the state, he is outside of the law and is to be reported by those who live within the law. As a subject of the law, you are required by law to report all infractions to the proper authorities. To delay is an infringement of the criminal code and subject to punishment. Threats to public safety includes talking against an elected representative, the government or the laws put in place for the people's safety, security and well-being. Being against the law is to oppose democracy and humanity. Government does not exist to implement party politics or partisan-based policies. The state exists for the good of humanity. The role of the state is not to promote one group at the expense of many, but to guide the people into a single global unity. Impulses that take us backwards and rewards a parochial few are discouraged. Mankind must move forward towards a future that is open to all, black, yellow, brown, red or white. But the right, with its colonial longings, its racist and xenophobic past, its misogyny and Christian elitism, must not be allowed to hold the world hostage to tradition and ancient customs. Time to move forward as a world united. Global interests above national interests. Human rights over property and historic rights. The future prioritized over the past. No one is to be excluded. No one is to be left behind. Equality before all. Let freedom reign.